Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to talk about the new upgrades that have just gone live in North America. So, the vast majority of these upgrades are going to be relevant for the Mystics and Spectres plus the Fairies that are going to be rerunning tomorrow or Friday. But I just want to give you guys a heads up of who got buffed because there's a strong likelihood that you may own some of these cards, and if they got buffed, you may just have a bit more fun time with them. So, with that being said, let's just jump right into it. So, the first thing is Menuit, or the Penguin, and amusingly enough, the Penguin, at least upon their initial debut, was like one of the sadder key heroes. And they have been buffed on a regular basis, and in this current iteration here, they're actually quite strong. They've got respectable amounts of personal damage after they transform with 777 and L, lots of movement time. Their active skill now gives you an RCV and a movement time buff, along with making a column of hearts and locking water and hearts. So, much stronger than before because you now have this RCV buff, because now you can rely on them to fill your whole save. If you have like Royal Oak, or you have Natsuro, who always buff your attack on a regular basis, Menuit could possibly fill that void of not having time or RCV. Possible is there, possible. And with their leader skill, they get more damage reduction when you match a cross of hearts, which is just awkward in my opinion overall. But on the bright side, their weapon assist, which is actually wonderfully strong, got a buff. It now is a 20 instead of a 23 turn cooldown, and that can be quite significant. You need 3 less turns of stalling, and stalling is always going to be dangerous in harder content because things hit hard, or you may not be able to stall because your leader skill's activation is tied to damage and damage reduction. So 3 turns less, big deal. You get the skill boost, team HP, 2 team RCVs, wonderful time all around. It gives you 2 turns of voiding damage absorption, attribute absorption, and void damage void. It's canceling basically almost all mechanics in that regards there. So if I had one Penguin, I would definitely want to make this weapon assist. For Emily, I can't say her name properly, she received a buff to her awakening. She now has double 10 instead of 10-7. So because she is transforming, she cannot receive double damage cap, and she's probably just going to be double capping on a regular basis with relative ease. She has got quite a large attack set, which will go up with the plus eggs, and again, double 10 combo equals 25 times personal damage. And their leader skill has been improved to give more health, so they have more bulks, which is always great. You're much more tanky, and you're able to survive more. But at the same time, they can obviously fulfill a wonderfully strong sub role, and their weapon assist provides a wonderfully strong active skill. It gives you 2 times movement time, removes orb block, creates a spinner at random. So creating a spinner either through her transforming active or through her weapon assist will overwrite any other spinner. And spinners have become a major issue in Mystic Dimensions 1 or Shura 3. Both of those dungeons have quite a few spinners, and being able to counter those spinners makes your life much easier. Definitely a strong inclusion on any Rainbow team, and she does give copious amounts of time extend. That's plus 4 seconds of movement time. It means you may not have to run a time extend badge. You could run the health badge, which increases your bulk and survivability overall. For Ferule, her active skill now provides RCV. So now it's an attack buff and an RCV buff on a 3-turn cooldown that also makes a row of light orbs and locks the light orbs. So it's kind of a soft counter to spinners, along with the fact that, you make lots of light orbs. It's good for her own activation because her leader skill needs to match at least 6 or more connected light orbs. So that instantaneous row can be swiped away for easy clears. You have doubles 7 combo. If you make that VDP, huge amounts of damage output overall. And you now get 2 instead of 3 bonus combos. So swiping just became even more efficient. Ferule is just getting small micro buffs like this and makes him quite a strong farming leader for like reasonably hard content. Sure, 1 can definitely be smashed with Ferule because it's relatively easy to do, especially if you have multiple copies. You just swipe, 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 happy. Maybe use Gung Ho Zeus and now you have auto follow attack. Still swipe, swipe, swipe. Point of the matter is, a nice buff overall. For their weapon assist, they received a buff. I'm not a huge fan of the weapon assist. It does make a 15-15 board of light and hard orbs, which is cool. You do get the attack buff, and you do get the half damage now for 4 instead of 2 turns. Like, it does useful things, but I feel like it takes away from utilizing them in their base form. And at this point in time, there's no truly great mono light team that really can take advantage of this. You're better off probably just utilizing them, especially if you're duplicates, and making it more of a Ferule system. For Envy is still a great skill boost stick. They've got large attack stat. They also now have a more rainbowy 3-color Super Awakening. So now they have 777 combo, which is 8 times personal damage, and then times 2.5 for that. They've got 20 times personal damage against all spawns with a reasonable attack stat. So not a bad rainbow card overall in that sense. They do have an 18 turn cooldown, which does gives you 3 turns of void, damage void, and makes a board of water, light, dark, and heal. I think it's a little awkward still overall. Like, they don't have skill charge to hasten it up. Akine is just a stronger solution to void, damage void, because she has a much shorter base cooldown. Obviously no personal damage compared to Envy, but I guess it just gives you the option. And with his active skill being buffed to 3 turns, it does open up some possibilities for farming, because this active skill affects their weapon assist, and it also affects the cursed key, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So for people who do like to farm, like I just released a video utilizing Envy to have void, damage void for the Thursday arena dungeon. Pretty nice thing overall. For Sloth, their active skill has been reduced from a 14 to a 12 turn cooldown, which means it charges up potentially in 6 instead of 7 turns, because with their skill charge awakening, these things charge up faster. So quite a nice buff overall. I feel like it's nice to have your clerics come up even faster. It's a big deal. Imagine if, like, say, Gung Ho Belial is now a 4 instead of 5 turn cooldown. Even more magical. The point of the matter is cooldown reduction on your clerics is significant, and their super awakenings are now quite powerful. They already had a 10 combo, and they could do reasonable amounts of personal damage. And before, I would utilize the 7 combo if the jammer resist was not necessary, but now with the 5 attribute awakening, it's nearly the same as a 10 combo. It's 4.5 times personal damage. So with the 5 times, you're just shy of 25 times personal damage. So Sloth now is a full cleric. Well, it's always been a full cleric with a shorter base cooldown that also has large amounts of personal damage. They could potentially double damage cap, maybe not all the time because their attack stat is kind of low, but you have huge amounts of personal damage with that 25 times, or just shy of 25 times personal damage. Quite exciting overall. For my Sakuya Mariel teams, I was using Sloth, or am still using Sloth, and I will probably swap the Awakenings to the 5 Elemental just to give myself even more consistent damage overall. For Gluttony, their Awakenings have been tremendously buffed. They now have 6 instead of 4 or 5. They have 6 skill boosts instead of 5, and also much more personal damage. Their active skill is now an 8 instead of 10 turn cooldown. Not bad because you get a nice board. I still don't utilize them that often. I tend to just rely on the weapon assist, which didn't get buffed, unfortunately. But hey, it's just another option to have available. For the 7-star fairies, Rosalind, her weapon assist got buffed. I feel like the opportunity cost of not using Rosalind is way too high, and I wouldn't necessarily consider Rosalind's weapon assist unless you had duplicates, because Rosalind is just a tremendously strong leader who's just gained even more value because we have, like, say, Amino Uzume as another cleric option, which just got released relatively recently. But for the buff that they received, they have a full spectrum of buffs. You get 4 times attack, RCV, and movement time with that 3x3 box instantaneously made. It is powerful. It's a full buff overwrite, so if you get slammed with all the debuffs, you can overwrite every single one of them, which is definitely nice, but again, the opportunity cost is quite high. And the same thing can be said for Natsuro's weapon. Like, if you have Natsuro, you probably want to use them as the leader. Maybe you have a second one, you may still want to use them as a sub, because more Natsuro actives means more damage output overall, and they just hit hard overall. But for the buff they received, it's a 16 instead of an 18 turn cooldown, which is definitely significant. It's a 2-turn void, damage void, with a full health heal and bind, awoken bind, and unmatchable. So it's doing quite a few things, but the drawback is because the cooldown is so long, we can't rely on it for our cleric needs. For void, damage void, that's definitely cool, but unless you're, like, farming stuff, or you, for some reason your team has no VDPs on it, I feel like it's going to be a little awkward to utilize because the Awakenings definitely favor mono water. For Shuri in her transform state, her active skill, which I said was unfortunate before because it didn't counter mechanics, now counters mechanics because it provides a 1.5 times RCV buff. So now she can clear RCV debuffs with this 2-turn cooldown while also unlocking the board and making 4 non-fire orbs to hard orbs. So a nice active skill overall for sure, because now you're countering mechanics. She does have a little bit of healing zest with that awakening. She does have the enhanced fire orbs or fire combos. She has super blind. She's got double 7 with a VDP, a strong Rosalind sub for sure. And again, that RCV buff makes her a much more appealing option overall, but I still like her weapon assist because it does quite a bit, and that wasn't buffed. For Maris has now a 7 instead of an 8 turn cooldown, and they're basically Polone for water that gives you 1 turn of delay. Like, with the delay is probably not going to be needed because you're utilizing the damage absorption, attribute absorption, but at the same time, maybe 1 turn of delay might save you. If something is delayable, you can definitely take your time and make your life a little bit easier. It does, I feel, give a little bit more options. More so the point is 1 turn cooldown shorter makes things happier, easier to charge up if you're playing through dungeons that have multiple repeated spawns. She still has nice VDP damage and does provide passive through the rows. Jira, I'm quite sad about. Like, she now a 4 instead of 6 turn cooldown, but you are unhastening, you're reversed haste. You're basically delaying your other cards by 2 turns to pierce through void, damage void for 2 turns. She is transforming. You can't inherit this fast charging active skill, and even then I think it's kind of awkward, like delaying your own stuff. She does still have immense personal damage, but being transforming, she can't take double damage cap. It's just an unfortunate outcome overall. And then we come to Yang Guifei, and they now have 4 attribute awakenings for damage. So they potentially have large amounts of rainbow damage, but I don't feel like it's going to be easy to incorporate them on a given team. They do have a terribly low attack stat as well, and their active skill gives you a board of fire, water, wood, and light, along with a little ping damage, which is insignificant now, I'd say, and they fully recover unmatchable status. So I guess if you had, like, say, other clerics, and you have like several partial clerics, you can make arguments for this, but I feel like it's hard to just justify using them over other options. Like, for instance, Sloth is a much better solution because Sloth can charge up also in 6 turns while having quite reliable personal damage as well, like a much higher attack stat as well. Like, yes, her Super Awakenings does let her tap into those, and like 3.5 times to the power of 3 plus a 7 combo, it can be quite a large amount of personal damage, but a low attack stat, and it's not a full cleric style active skill, so I just feel like it's just not going to work. Their leader skill is definitely stronger, but only 65% damage reduction as your effective health is nowhere near enough in this day and age. Her pixel form has gained a skill boost and half a second movement time, and you still are a great dragon killing solution. You have an 8 instead of a 9 turn cooldown. She's just a dragon killing stick with an extra skill boost. I'd say that's a nice win overall. No Banana or Nobunaga has now a 10 combo included in his regular awakenings, and that's significant because his personal damage shoots up. He also can gain a 10 combo through his super awakening, so he can definitely deal monstrous amounts of damage, but he doesn't get VDP if you take the 10 combo super awakening, which I think is unfortunate because if you don't have VDP, you're wasting a lot of the damage. One of the biggest gripes I have with Nergigante is that he's double 10 combo. Double caps with ease, but does nothing against void spawns. Nobunaga is obviously a much more inferior option in that sense, but it's going to be a little awkward. But then at the same time, maybe a 10 with a VDP might be enough to cap on a reasonably regular basis. If you're a devil, you're getting completely obliterated. And his active skill is definitely much stronger. You get a 6 turn... you create 6 dark orbs at random, so orb generation is always nice. And you fully recover bind and unmatchable status. It's not a Woken Bind, which is unfortunate. If it was a Woken Bind, this card would be great because his colors are the same as Gung Ho Belial. And we know Gung Ho Belial is great because she's a great cleric. So you have to definitely have another solution for a Woken Bind clearing. But again, we're kind of starting to edge into the era of utilizing multiple different clerics to take care of repeated floors that have bind, a Woken Bind, or unmatchable. It's not a bad thing to keep in mind. I'm just not quite sure how I could truly incorporate him onto a given team because in terms of dark red clerics, you compete with Belial, which is great, Merrick, which is also great, and Wrath, who is also great. Point of the matter is, there's extreme competition in the dark red category for clerics. For his pixel form, kind of like Yang Guif, they gained an extra skill boost. Cool times. You're just a great god-killing solution. Nice thing overall. For Suo, their awakenings have been adjusted, so they now have 1 extra skill boost, which is always pleasant. And their super awakenings now include VDP. And a big issue was they had quad 7 combo and no VDP. So all their damage would be wasted against void spawns. This solves that issue. Their active skill is now a 10 instead of an 11 turn cooldown, which obviously is nice. And their leader skill now gives you 3 bonus combos instead of 2. Like, I don't think it's necessary, and 1 more second orb movement time. I don't think his leader skill is anything to write home about, unfortunately, because it's only, like, not that high amounts of effective health. But as a water sub, not bad. You can double cap probably reasonably reliably. You have 8 latent slots. Not a bad thing overall. For their other form, in the fire form, there are monstrous amounts of VDP damage. You can have 4 VDP awakenings and double capping. So for your Rosalind teams, this is definitely a strong solution for dealing with void damage, like void spawns. You can have a very reliable double damage cap VDP card who covers water, which might be an awkward color to cover if you're playing through Shura 3. They also have 50% damage reduction with, well, I don't know actually. I don't know how much damage reduction they give. They give damage reduction through their active skill, along with changing the board to fire, water, and hearts. But the bonus, well, the damage reduction is meaningful because in Shura 3, you're pretty much always going to need to have some form of damage reduction to tank Hexazeons below 50% hit. This is definitely a solution for it. You have monstrous VDP damage, 4 skill boosts, team health, great things overall. I'm actually quite excited. If I had Suo, I would probably slap them on my team instead of Rudra because it covers that same color. For Hyren, they gain machine typing, which might be relevant, maybe not. Their active skill now gives you a 6 times attack buff along with clearing Awoken skill binds and removing ore blocks. Like, you get an attack buff and you void damage. So not dying for 1 turn is always great, but the awakenings are a little awkward to use, I feel. I just don't really foresee where I could slot them in to truly take advantage of them. And their leader skill now gives you 1 ping of auto follow attack. So for farming purposes, maybe you could utilize it because 6+ linked fire and wood orbs. Oh, you need both colors. Never mind. It's just an awkward thing overall. For their evolved form, they have gained lots, and I mean lots of personal damage. You have double 7 and triple VDP. Big stuff all around. You now have the ability to fully clear bind and awoken bind or block remove, and you get that 6 times attack buff. Like, that 6 times attack buff is probably overkill. Like, maybe you could utilize them as like a secondary cleric. Not enough to be your primary cleric just because it's a 12-turn cooldown. But voiding damage is a big deal. Like I said, in Shura 3 and Mystic Dimensions 1, you need to void damage or reduce damage in Shura 3 at least to make your life much easier. A strong solution overall. And again, large amounts of personal damage. So with that being said, this concludes all the various buffs that were given out in the latest data update. As a whole, I am quite excited for just having, like, Envy being a shorter cooldown. Like, I do like to use Void Damage Void on occasion for farming purposes. Ferule's nice, strong, like, just gets small micro buffs all the time to clear stuff like Shura 1 with ease. Amelie has gained huge amounts of personal damage, which may not be necessary. Menuit, still a great weapon assist overall. So, let me know what you think about these buffs in the comments below. Which ones are you the most excited for? And with that being said, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.